Hey y'all, it's Sarah, and this is part 2 of how I'm going to kind of finish out this spread or add some details to it. One of the things that I get asked about a lot is my hydration, and I use a stencil. There's a lot of different types of stencils out there. A lot of these thinner ones have little teardrop or little raindrop shapes. I just eyeball it. I don't take it very seriously. You can see I try to figure it out, but if I don't get them super even, by the time it's all said and done and all my things are written on here, I don't think it's that big of a deal if they're not perfect. It's more or less a reminder to me to remember that I'm not much different than a plant, and I do need to make sure I drink plenty of water, especially when you look up at my temperatures for this week in my area. They're not too bad this week in comparison. I'm saying that when you look at them, they still seem a little extreme, but they're a little better than what we've had lately. So I definitely need to remind myself to drink a little water, put a little fluids in my system. So basically, this is all I do. I just eyeball it in. I come in with some color light blue. This is just a Crayola Super Tip that I've worn the label off of. And I just swoop down around one side of it, and it kind of gives a water drop effect. And that's pretty much all I do. I used just a square of any kind, something like this. I'm sure this little guy has some squares too. Just where I put my meal plan here at the bottom, that's usually where my family knows to look. That's also where I know to look in the mornings if I need to pull something out to defrost or whatever. That's what's down here at the bottom. So I get asked about the weather. I freehand that, but I'm going to tell you there are stencils like these little cheaper collections. There are stencils like these that have little weather icons on them. As a matter of fact, look, this guy does right here. It's got some little clouds on it. I just freehand it. If it's not great, it's okay. Once it's all said and done, I think it blends in just fine. So I'm going to show you how I just swoop in and do that. So for this Monday, it's supposed to be a little cloudy. These next 2 days, I'm going to cheat. Let me find a circle. Oh, it's got some circles. If it's just a plain circle sun, I'll use a stencil just to help me, because me and circles, not so great. So I'm just picking one that'll fit up in the space I gave myself. And I'm glancing over at the calendar, the weather calendar at the same time. So none of my clouds are the same. And the rest of the week is just sunshine. So this one's a pretty easy one. There's no rain to throw in there. I might come back in and add a few details, such as the childhood throw some rays on my sun. And just to kind of get those even, I think about a clock. And I go in and do that part. And they're close enough at a glance that I think it works. So you can just see. It's cloudy for this day, so I can still put a little sun there. Just pop my little... I don't take it too far with the little sun rays. Just a dot. I'm sure there's probably stickers out there. And you know what? There's also... let's see. Let me pull this from the side here. There's stamps. Like, I have stamps that can do some of that. But it's so much faster When I do planner stuff on my own, I can whip through this a whole lot faster than when I'm sitting explaining it. So it doesn't take me near the amount of time. Usually I'll come back in. Whatever blue I use down here for my little water drops, normally I come in and just do the bottom of any clouds, unless it's a rainy day, and I'll do the bottom of that in gray. But not even the whole cloud, I just kind of outline the bottom. This was the yellow that I used already on this page on my kind of doodle work, so I'm going to try to fit it in here. Let me see. I might even, some days, if I'm feeling super froggy, reach up and grab this. I might bring in a slightly darker yellow. And I'm still using out of this package that I was using for the artwork for this, or the doodle work. I might come in and just do a small little swoop around the bottom of my sun. Just, I don't know. It feels like that seems kind of artsy. Almost like a little curve there at the bottom. I will say for my different squares and stuff, I cheat because I do have these. I'd gotten a set, you can see they're numbered here at the top. I'd gotten a really cheap set on Amazon for maybe $3 or $4 during some kind of sale that has a lot of different squares and rectangles and things like that. That's usually what I use. I find it easier, but you can do it with a ruler. I also have this one, which, if you see, it's the same brand as some of my markers, and I got this set in with some pins at one point. And this one it's meant for doing like home interior, like architecture type stuff. But I gotta tell you, the beds make perfect little squares. The twin bed here makes a good small square. These make a good large square. That's usually what I throw in. I do know I have some things. I have a thing to do for this particular Monday. A lot of times I'll try to work around whatever doodles I have going on. So I would come in and start somewhere around my doodles. And I'm just using a cheap dollar store ballpoint pen that has a stylus on the end. And I like a lot of the ballpoint pens because the inks usually match what is already printed in my planner. And that works out really well for me. And they don't, being ballpoint, they don't bleed. However, it's not my favorite types of pens to write with. So you could fit, there's still room around this piece of artwork. And you can see, I still need to put something there because I do know, I always try to remember that Tuesday is garbage day or we'll forget. Especially during the summer, during the school year. My kid knows to do it. During the summer, it does get a little more forgotten. So I can work something in around without covering whatever doodles I put on my page. So that part's very handy to me. I've got some lists that I might want to put in. I may add some more artwork. This took up a lot. Normally, you guys will see that I'll fill a lot of this in by the time I show it. And I still may. Like I have, here's a good example. I have a stencil that has like these little banner flags. I could throw that in. Let's do that. Let's just do it for fun. So I'm going to find this particular stencil it's got a little curve there that I can throw a banner onto. And I'm going to bring it down to on my weekend area because I know that I get to play a little more on my weekend areas. I don't list as much. So I want to try to fit this somewhere centered a little bit, close to it. I'm eyeballing it. I'm not going to measure it out, but put this little swoop in for my banner. And you can freehand this if you're so inclined. If you don't happen to have any of these stencils, don't think you got to go buy any. You can absolutely, something like this you can do with just a ruler and a little time and patience. But since I have these, I might as well feel like I get my money's worth out of them. So I'm using the pennant one. I did consider, and I'll show you, because I usually do a practice run on an old planner, and I'll play around with the markers or whatever I'm choosing to use to make sure my idea fits before I ever show it to you guys. I'll show you that you could very easily do this in a couple different designs, and one of mine was a little more on the freehand side. So I'll show you that in just a second. It's sitting to the side of me, but I'm just popping these little banners in. You could do this with stickers too. I know they make stickers like this. I'm just working around that curve, and now I've got a little banner. And honestly, if you don't need the extra room, like for me, I use my planner mostly to keep up with a little bit of my chore list and then random appointments like kids' eye appointments. The rest of the things, I don't have the same kind of busy schedule as I did when my kids were younger. But for instance, my son has an eyeglass appointment. That's something I don't want to forget. Or a doctor's appointment, those kind of things. I still need my planner that way. So let me show you really quick what I mean about doing it by hand. So this is a test run just to see how the markers performed on an old planner page. This one here, I did this using some circles. You could outline something that you have circular, and I just kind of ran through and tested out this idea, which I thought was super cute. And I may still be able to fit it in later, but you can see that you can take that all kinds of ways. So I'm going to go ahead right at this moment and bring in my little gray marker. And I'm just going up one side of this pennant, and this thing is so faint, I'm not sure if you guys can see it. But I'm giving a little shadow there. Not much. This one's really faint. I got this one at, if you have a pop shelf near you, you can buy these individually. And this is light cool gray. I keep this separate from most of my other markers because I pretty much use this as my real faint shadow for everything. It just gives it a little dimension. So I'm just going up one little angle of my pennant and then down the side. And I'm sure I might come in and decorate these pennants. You can always use it if you've got something to celebrate over that weekend. You can write letters inside of your pennant, like, you know, a birthday banner or that kind of thing. Just kind of run with your imagination on that. But I wanted to share some of the things that I do to give myself spots and places. Like, I'm using the king size bed square. Seriously though, you don't have to buy any of these stencils. I just happen to have a lot of these things because I was a paper crafter and a scrapbooker for so long. Cool thing about these is that all the way up to the king size bed, they all fit in, this is a classic size planner. Or, excuse me, this is a big size. So it fits in all the squares. A lot of times I might just put one line of color across the top of a square like this. I haven't decided what other colors I'm going to accessorize with. But I do know that here lately, my honey and I have had date nights on Saturdays. We've tried to, now that the kids are old enough, we've been doing this more and more for ourselves. So I want to make sure I've got a square there. A lot of times I like to use list, or I like to use something like this for lines, because I will write crooked as all get out any given day, or use the check boxes, something like this, these little check boxes here in a row. Those I find super handy. So I might do them something like this. Let's see if I can get it slid up there. And then you can fill in. The great thing about this is you can always make the colors completely coordinate. You don't have to worry, do I have a sticker? Do I have a box? You can turn everything coordinating for yourself. So I love the stencils like this that already have the lines spaced out for you. However, you don't have to have that. If you've got a ruler and you know how to use your ruler, you can absolutely do it that way for yourself. And I'll show you. So I'm just using a basic ruler and kind of moving down. I like having spaces like this because I really, really need the lines. Not everybody does. Some of you guys have beautiful handwriting and you can write super straight. I have never been that person. And I'm still working on improving my handwriting. I have the 90s kid handwriting where it's like a bubble handwriting, and I've been trying to learn the calligraphy and those kind of things. So that ended up working really, really well on the spacing. You can do that with a marker so that those lines are colored. I do like to do that with some of my little brush pens. It's the great thing about having that dual tip is that you can get those lines to coordinate with whatever it is that you've already been doing on your page. This is one of those opportunities where I could come in, add a little wording, because I do like to throw that in sometimes, especially during holiday weeks. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed, that just things I wanted to share on putting together the useful part. Once you get past your artwork and your frou-frou stuff and your decorative stuff, the squares help me kind of designate for myself. It brings attention to whatever little details that I need there, but some of you guys may need that whole space and you might not want to fill that in, but you can always do the same thing inside of the square, add some lines like this. I'll try to go more into those things. I always forget to do that part because I just kind of turn the camera off and go into that and start adding my my personal things, my family things. But this is pretty much the basics of where I usually end up at before I start putting in my things. I try to get somewhere to this point with you guys. Hopefully there was a few ideas in that you can run with. And like I said, don't feel like you got to go and buy these things. If you've got a ruler, use a ruler. You can absolutely do this very same things with just a straight edge or whatever kind of ruler you have handy, or trace things. If you've got like a little square or something that you can trace that fits within there, I absolutely will do that too. But since I have them, I'm going to use them. And I think I'm going to go ahead, start filling in, getting my meal plan put into place down here. I've got my weather in place. Now I can start putting my chores and my extra tasks, any appointments that need to go in, all of that kind of stuff. I may add a little color, things like that as I write. But there's the basics that I usually kind of jump into. I've got a nice little section here that I can still add list and errands and all of those things just for the week. I still have my space down here that I can fit things into. So even though I wasted a lot of space for this particular artwork or doodle work, I still have room around those places. I hope this gives you a little bit to how I get to where my end results are. I tend to also, a little quick tip, I'm taking the same gray marker, and my little squares like this, a lot of times I just come right under the bottom of a square like that, and I come over just a hair, draw underneath it, and then I stop just a hair from the end. So this is such a faint one, maybe you can see that little drop shadow. And I'll do that with a lot of my squares, even the little tiny ones here. These little small ones, a lot of times I'll do the same thing. I'll come in and just do like a backwards L around those. And it's very faint on camera because this is such a faint marker, but there's a nice little drop shadow. I'll do the same thing down here where I've got the little check marks for dinner and that kind of thing. I don't want to forget these guys over here. And it makes it so much easier since I don't go end to end. And I'm not super great at straight lines on my own. If I just do it just faintly like that, not a big deal. Just, it's a little something. It's the details that build up into the bigger picture. So it's those kind of things. I hope that maybe you pick something up from this. Sorry, the first video was so long for this, but that was a lot of detail. And I absolutely love the finish product for that, even though it took up so much more space. And I wouldn't have done it if I knew this wasn't kind of a holiday weekend, but not on the weekend. So there's that. You can use it again in another way. But that's all I've got. I plan to hang out with you very soon because I already have ideas for next week. I'm taking in a little summer theme, a little beachy theme. So hopefully I'll get back on track. I know I have been doing a lot of painting. That's why my nails look so bad. I've been doing a lot of painting and staining and other crafty things, and have not wanted to do videos while I was a hot mess. But I'll try to get back on track. I'll try to get back on my doodle a days, and wish me the best. Hopefully you guys will hang out with me again, and we'll get something cute on paper next time around. Bye, y'all.